Thank you, Honorable Chair. If I can just apologize on behalf of the peers. We were supposed to come together, but unfortunately he did send communication earlier today indicating that he found out over the weekend that he interacted with a colleague who then tested positive for COVID. He therefore was making arrangements to go and get tested himself this morning, and he requested that I convey his apologies to yourself, Chairman, and the committee for his inability to attend in person. And he also requested that I then represent him at this meeting. Coming to the issue you raised, Chairman, as you rightly said, the last time we came with the bill, covering the period from 2015 to 2018, the guidance we got from the committee was to ensure that the figures get validated by the Auditor General. We then proceeded to make arrangements with the relevant ministries to embrace the additional expenditures that had not been included, and we then submitted this through your committee chairman, so that this is passed on to the Auditor General for validation. We have since been approached by the Auditor General for additional information to enable them to carry out their assignment. And I want to indicate that that additional information was submitted on the 18th of this month, Chairman, to the Auditor General. And they are, as we speak, reviewing those documents to assess their adequacy for the purposes of their validation assignment. And I also want to indicate, Chairman, that to the extent that there might be additional requirements that they will need for that purpose, as Treasury, we stand ready to facilitate so that they complete that assignment as quickly as is possible. We are aware, Chairman, that that bill did lapse, but because there was this pending assignment, we felt it was best if the validation process is completed, then the bill can be reintroduced, either as is, if it's confirmed as we presented, or without whatever amendments might come through from the validation process. We thought it would be premature to reintroduce it while there is still a pending assignment, Chairman. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandasara. I just want to bring to your attention that this is the end of July 2022. And you recall that when we discussed, we met with you, it was on 6th July 2020. And that's a passage of 2 years. And from your presentation, you are telling us that some of the information went as late as you said 13th July to the Auditor General. 13th of July. 13th July, which basically is also 2 years down the line. And the Auditor General is yet to do the validation. In your view, do you think that is 2 years to do that work? Very many, we're just talking of the expenditure. Is that time, is it normal? Is it a proper time frame? Or that your ministry, and I'm talking 2 years in the Accountant General, you could take 2 years to supply such information?
But Chairman, let me start by apologizing for the delay. It's certainly a long time. And I think the challenge was initially with getting everyone on board to ensure that we get the amended appropriation accounts submitted. But having submitted them, our expectation was the Auditor General would then deal with the ministries which had submitted those accounts. But When they then requested us to avail the supporting documentation, we then ran around to put that together. And that's what we have now submitted, Honorable Chair. My apologies for that delay.
But Mr. Zandasara, from an accountant general point of view, don't you think that the presentation of supporting documents to the Auditor General, you did not have to wait for the Auditor General to ask you to bring the supporting document? Do you think that you were supposed to just give the Auditor General the figures and the supporting documents for them to do validation?
But Chairman, I must admit that that was an oversight. At least it's something that should have been done together with the House to expedite that process.
Okay. It's honorable.
Yeah, no, I think this is a very serious matter which might need explanation as to the reason why it took you 2 years to submit documents that you were supposed to submit in the first place. Clearly, you were not running around as per your statement, because 2 years. Well, can you maybe help us understand?
Are you connected?
Oh. Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. Honorable Chair, sorry, it's a weekend, we're coming from 30 meetings. Honorable Chair, I think we must get a proper explanation on why it took 2 years. 2 years is a very long time, considering what were the tasks that were requested from the Minister of Finance. Because these are documents that they were supposed to submit in the first place. Then when the Auditor General asks for the document, it takes you 2 years. Then you come here before Parliament and say you're running around for 2 years to submit documents. What are the reasons why these documents, one, were not submitted in the first place, and secondly, why it took 2 years for you to submit? And I'm not sure whether you have finally submitted everything now. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
We have a supplementary on that.
All right, honorable.
He said they submitted 13 July, right? This when we spoke to the Auditor General, she said they haven't submitted the supporting expenditure document. So are they saying they supplied them the supporting expenditure documents on the 13th, first of all? Was when we spoke to her, she said they did.
Yes. Honorable Mazimore, so that you will be able to answer them.
Yeah. When they appeared, the minister appeared before the committee on the 26th of June 2020, they had some reasons that they also raised, that they were even short-staffed and they needed to sort out themselves, but they promised to do what they were supposed to do in the very shortest period of time. It was also agreed that we were going to take the first school of thought, as Naka put it, that the 60 days stipulated in the Constitution were going to start on the day that the Auditor General will have informed you that this is how much you have overspent. Effectively, what it also means is that we were also supposed to count the 16 days again when the information was validated. So are you now telling us that now that you have submitted the additional information on the 13th of July, we are going to wait for another period when the Auditor General is going to audit again, confirm the over expenditure, and that is then the time we are going to bring the condemnation bill of 2015. Is also the ministry saying that we are going to continue spending money without condonation? And is it also the reason why the ministry didn't ask for the 2015 to 2018 condonation bill to be reinstated? Because there was no effort at all by the ministry to have it reinstated, even up to today. But the ministry is now going on to again bring in another bill to Parliament for condonation. There was no effort to reinstate the bill from the minister. Why didn't the minister realize that, or the ministry didn't realize that it was important for that condonation? Or to you, it's just business as usual?
Yeah, over to you, sir. I think answering the manner that they've been asking, especially the question that has been posed by Honorable Wendy, then Honorable Masola, then Honorable Matimba.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The delays in the submission, we're talking of 2 years. I think I need to clarify that there are two components that I was referring to. First, it was the submission of the amended appropriation accounts for validation by the audit office, which we did submit. But having submitted that, the audit office then, in terms of that validation process, they have requested to say, we take note of what has been submitted for audit. Can we now have the supporting documents? And those supporting documents is what was submitted on the 13th, Honorable Chair, as I did indicate. I did indicate, Honorable Chair, that yes, the expectation is when you submit accounts, there is a need for supporting documentation to facilitate the audit. But the thinking was that process would be done at the relevant line ministries where the amendments the amendments had been done. But when they then requested for this to be availed from a central point, that's the submission we made on the 13th, Honorable Chair. Then the issue on the lapsed bill.
Sorry, Mr. Jangasar, before you go to the Honorable Matimba, there was a specific question that Honorable Masola actually asked you. And I just want to remind you that you are under oath.
Yes, Chairman.
You said that these documents you submitted to the Auditor General on 13 July. And this committee has got on good record that some of the documents have not yet been submitted to the Auditor General, and that the Auditor General has actually been in touch with your offices, seeking, requesting you to submit these documents.
On Friday?
Is the latest Friday.
I might need to confirm with colleagues, Chairman, because I'm aware that there is a submission that was made on the 13th, which they were reviewing, to the extent that they might have been come back in terms of more information. Maybe my colleagues might assist me. Thank you, Chairman, with your indulgence.
Yes, Madam.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you, Honorable members. We did submit the supporting documents on the 13th of July. However, we kept engaging the auditors as to either they needed more information, and we discussed on Thursday, the 21st of July, and Friday the 22nd again, and even on Saturday, that what we have submitted is what we used to come up with the amended appropriation accounts. And the amended appropriation accounts were signed for by the respective accounting officers from the line ministries.
So in other words, you are saying that the Auditor General is saying that the supporting document that you submitted are not sufficient for her to finish the validation. And if that is the case, what is it that you as ministry are going to do to ensure that the validation by the Auditor General is done in line with the agreed position that we agreed between your ministry and this Public Affairs Committee?
Chairman, if I could just come in, as I indicated earlier, as Treasurer, we stand ready to facilitate availing of additional information that might be required to facilitate the validation process.
Chair, just on that one. The outstanding information that is now being expected by the Auditor General, can you confirm whether it's new requirements or new additional information that she requested, or is the same thing that she requested that she did not supply that office the document that they wanted in full? Or maybe they are raising new additional requirements, because there seems to be a problem there. You see, because if you submitted half of the documents to her, or you didn't submit everything that she requested, then we have a problem. So these new things that we're talking about on Saturday, are they new additional things, or it's you who have not submitted what was originally requested for you to submit? Because this is stunning the validation exercise.
In our discussion, we were saying that we are open for any engagement, any additional.
You had a discussion with them Friday, Saturday, right? We know that you stand ready to supply. But my question is, what the Auditor General is saying is outstanding. Is it the new additional requirements that they've requested, or the ones that you're supposed to request that took you these 2 years to submit, that is still outstanding? You didn't submit your documents. I don't know that I'm clear. Because now we have two conflicting statements. The Auditor General is saying they can't proceed because they are waiting for documents from you. And you are coming here, and after you have been reminded by the chairman that you are under oath, you are now saying that you are just ready to submit additional information.
On their request, if there is anything that after their examination of the amended appropriation accounts, if there is additional information that they would require.
No, but they are waiting for you to submit documents that are outstanding.
In fact, Mr. Chandasara, the position that we are getting from your ministry, it appears that there has not been an improvement from the time that you came in 2020. It appears as if, judging from the response, remember it insisted that it was 13 July. And it meant that you came to this meeting without even having asked your department that you had. She had the conversation with the Auditor General as late as Saturday. And that lack of preparedness and planning when coming to this meeting, does that indicate that you regard the Parliament and the people of Zimbabwe so low?
Well, Chairman, certainly not. I must apologize for that. I had a brief with my team, and that's where the date of the 13th of July came from that discussion. I wasn't aware that there were subsequent information requests. My understanding was they are reviewing what has been submitted with a view to ascertain whether it's adequate. To the extent that it's not, then they can come in and indicate for whatever else they might need for that purpose. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, and before you answer Honorable Matsimo's other questions, can you just give an assurance to this House the deadline or the time frame that you should have been finalized with the Auditor General in terms of all the outstanding information that they need.
In addition to that, Mr. Chair, can you also have a paper trail of what has been happening between the Auditor General and the Ministry from the 26th of June 2020? Because it's like everything else started on the 13th. So what has been happening all along when we requested the information? If my memory serves me correct, even during that particular meeting on the 26th of June 2020, the ministry was adamant that it had provided all the information to the Auditor General. This is on record. The ministry actually said it had all the information. So what has been happening from that particular day to today, the paper trail, if the ministry could favor this committee, for us to believe that you take us seriously, and for us not to believe that you just come here for the purpose of just appearing and then you disappear. And I think this is also evident, Mr. Chairman. We've also considered even the reason that being advanced by the minister, so that the permanent secretary, because the level at which we are now, it's actually, I can say, beyond the officers. It's now going to the permanent secretary himself, because he is the chief accountant. And for us to still take even the reason of the COVID test and the like, I think this could have been done earlier to avail himself to this committee. But I want to be very honest. It's going to be very difficult for us to even get the information. Even what you got from the RBZ is on the outflows, which are not supported with any document. And I don't know where the information is going to come from, whether it is there or the information is not even there. Because it's also something that troubles us as members of parliament, for us to continuously talk about the same thing. We then appear to be pestering you, giving you problems, being, what do they call it? There are certain names that we can call the committee. So I just wanted to say this before it goes to my questions.
So I think you had it, Mr. Jandasa. What we need is one, we need the paper trail from the time we last met in 2020 up to now. But in addition to that, we need you to give us a definite deadline when we are going to submit the papers to everything that the Auditor General needs. Are you in a position to give us a deadline, a timeline?
Chairman, if in the absence of an actual checklist of what the requirements are, it would be difficult to give a deadline off the cuff. I think it would assist if we get an indication of what is outstanding, then we check to see how quickly we can get it before we advise. Otherwise,
it's okay. You cannot give us the specific. What we are going to do is, Parliament is not going to give you the time frame. We are giving you 7 days from now to make sure that every information that is supposed to be submitted to the Auditor General is submitted. And when you do submit it, we also need the copies to be submitted to this Parliament, and we will actually liaise with the Auditor General in respect to that. Because like Honorable Mazimura was saying, this is not a reinventing the wheel. This information, you have it in your system, and it should not take even a day. And giving you 7 days, I think we're actually being lenient to your office.
Yes,
Honorable Maso.
I wanted to say, you know what?
So before you come in, Honorable Maso, there were questions that Honorable Mazimura had raised earlier, which I thought you could actually attend to.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chairman. The issues related to the lapsed bill and the fact that it was not reinstated. I did indicate, Chairman, that because we had this pending exercise, we felt it was important to get that concluded so that when it's reinstated, it's either reinstated as is or with amendments, depending on the outcome of the validation process.
Was that the real reason, Mr. Zandasara? Was it not the reason that you did not reinstate this bill, primarily because you thought Parliament will forget about it and you could just go on life as usual? You now come up with the condemnation bill for the RTGS and you thought that we're going to forget about the US 9.6 billion that you had, which had lapsed. And if it is true that your reasoning is true, why is it that you never communicated with the Parliament? Maybe not Parliament in general, but this particular committee, because you knew that this issue was under consideration by this committee.
It's unfortunate, Chairman, that that was not done, but we certainly did not foresee a situation where this would just fall away, because this is a critical issue in terms of public resource management, and we are aware that the way Parliament operates obviously is not something that would be forgotten. But even from our own perspective, we would not want to have open items pending, particularly where we had gotten clear guidance on what process to follow to get this done. Thank you, Chairman.
No, I just want to say, as accountant, I'm an accountant personally. It's an insult or patronizing to say that people will spend money on something that they don't know they're spending money on. It shouldn't have taken these people too long to just know what they spend their money on, because there must be an audit out there of what this money was spent on. You understand? Now, I was looking at what you were saying about the staff, that they were, it's on 3.3. Whether it was purely a lapse or defiance and guarantee for non-recurrence. And Mr. Vandasara explained that it was on account of what was happening and the ministry had lost skills. He advised the committee that the ministry was orienting officers to avoid a recurrence of the same challenge. They highlighted that in addition to capacitating officers, the ministry was developing manuals for clear guidance on what should be done and timeline. So clearly that wasn't done. Clearly there is someone who's sleeping on duty somewhere, because these things are supposed to be there. Because when money is spent, it's spent on something. It cannot just go out. So if you spend on something, that thing is on record. So if it's on record, you should just forget it. You don't need 2 years. And I don't think this was the first time that they've sought condonation, right? And you know what's needed.
Yeah, just fair the question, Honorable.
So why did it take long to just submit what was needed when this is not the first time and you know exactly what you need to do when you seek for condonation?
Yeah. Mr. Zodasara, over to you. What the honorable member simply said, 9.6 billion US dollars is too huge a figure that you cannot fail to have a paper trail and supporting documents. And talking to the Accountant General, we're supposed to be the lead in the all government accounting systems. Surely, do you think the time frame that we are taking is just out of the norm?
Well, thank you, Chairman. It's not an issue of the documents are not there, but it's an issue of the Auditor General can then say what they want to be satisfied that, because it's a validation process, it's an audit process. The auditor then tells us what they need to be comfortable that what we have presented is okay before they sign off. So it's not really an issue of there are no documents, but it's an issue of engagement to agree on what they need in addition to what they already have, so that we are able to conclude that process. Honorable Chairman.
Just want to know, Honorable Bushu, Honorable Honorable Bushu.
I think
Mr. Jandasara, I know you are one of them. In your department, the people that are in the active positions.
Chairman, I don't have the numbers offhand. It's something that I could check on and provide.
Implying that there are a number of people, quite a huge, that are in their active capacity in your department.
Not a big number, but there are people that are active, Chairman.
Even an estimate, you can't get an estimate. This is your department.
Sorry, apologies.
I'm saying even an estimate, because it's your department. We just want the figures for your department, because I think this impacts on, maybe we are pushing you when you don't have staff that are supposed to be in the position. You can just estimate maybe 10, maybe 5.
We recently got some of the positions filled, so at this point, it's certainly not more than 5. But I would need to check the actual numbers.
All right,
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is, Mr. Chandasara, we are talking of 9.6 billion US dollars. This is a huge amount that can run this country comfortably for a year if well accounted for. Can you explain why wasn't this information accompanied by the information required to confirm that this money was used for this particular purpose? Because whenever you make a payment, there are certain documents that are generated. The person who uses the money or who wants to use the money initiates the process, and it's sent to the ministry. And when it gets there, you as the accountant, you then look at the need and say, is it justified? And then the money is spent. But as you spend the money, there are documents, primary documents that must be produced. Things like invoices. This is the information that is required when you want to validate where and how the money was spent. And this is information that must always be on the fingertips. Are we saying our accounting system is so bad that we cannot follow the money? We cannot have a paper trail of what 1 billion that went to agriculture paid for. We don't have that information, because that is the information that is required by the Auditor General.
And before you answer the question, Honorable, we should understand you had a follow-up question. Thank you. So, Mrs. Odasara, I want you to note the question that Honorable Mazumure raised. Then I'm also going to, in addition to that, Mr. Odasara, your ministry then he came up with this new financial adjustment bill, HB for 2022, where you now seek the Parliament to condone excess expenditure in 2019 of $6.7 billion, and you also expect the Parliament, you are asking Parliament to condone the other expenditure for 2020, which is the 100 billion, 690 million for 2020. Albeit all these are actually in RTGS. You confirm that, isn't it? Yes, sir. And I just also want you to advise this House, because in 2019 and 2020, because your department is supposed to be advising the minister and in terms of the position of the finance of the country. And you are aware that we have been, the Zimbabwe and the people of Zimbabwe, until recently when the Auditor General came up with the report that with the excess expenditure, everybody had been assured that we had the surpluses in 2019 and 2020. Can you reconcile these two, that your department is you've been misinforming the Home Ministry and Zimbabwe in general, or you say that you don't have mechanism within your ministry to actually see any excess and you have to wait for the Auditor General to point it that out to you?
Thank you, Chairman. If I can start with the one on the paper trail. I did indicate, Honorable Chairman, that the expectation when we embarked on this, the process, getting the appropriation accounts for the relevant years amended and submitted for audit, the expectation was this would be done at the line ministries that had actually done those amendments. So the issue of then submitting the paperwork from the Treasury side only came when the Auditor General decided to do it from a central point. So it's not that the paperwork was not there, because that was the basis on which the amendments were effected in the first place. That was the basis on which the ministries did amend the appropriation accounts and sign off for audit. Coming to the second issue you raised, Chairman, on the excess for 2019 and 2020, I think it's important to make a distinction between the issue of surpluses that you refer to and the issue of excess expenditure that requires condonation. The reason I'm saying that, Honorable Chairman, is there would be additional revenues raised over and above what was expected, and then you then end up with more expenditure. The only challenge then becomes that that additional expenditure was not covered by the appropriate authority, which is the reason why we are then coming back for condonation with respect to that additional expenditure.
Maybe could you actually explain it in a layman's language? The question is, you had a budget which was approved by Parliament, and you were asked to spend X number of dollars, and we have been operating on the basis that you have actually been operating within the budget, to the extent that the expenditures that you were actually making were actually less than the revenue, hence we had the surplus. And now the Auditor General tells us that no, in 2019 you actually had an excess expenditure of 6.7 billion, and in 2020 you had an excess expenditure of 100 billion. And your explanation, I did not hear it properly.
Chair, before you respond, because what I understand is that he's saying that because they had a surplus, they received revenue which they were not expecting, right? And then they decided to use it, appropriate it themselves, you know. And I don't know where it fits, because everything, even if you raise more money, right, as long as it's not covered in the budget, you are already spending outside the budget, you know, and it must be appropriated by Parliament. And it's in the same manner in which we are asking you why it's so much amount. You know, there's a one intent, Honorable Chair, that I don't think this ministry is taking Parliament serious. Even from their explanation from their lack of preparedness, and from the excuses that the senior leadership, because this is a serious matter which requires the secretary, permanent secretary himself to come, because the answers that we are sitting here for are clearly inadequate. And I don't think we are taking this work seriously. It's a pity that the permanent secretary interacted with someone that is COVID. I hope we are not going to see him running around this morning. As per your explanation, he went straight to the doctor. That's why he's not here to get tested. Because if that reason has been used for him to evade the parliament, then that's a serious matter. And my suggestion, Chair, is that for us to solve this issue, I'm suggesting that since you have given them a week to submit what is outstanding, we need them to come with the permanent secretary, because there's a trend. These guys, they are a law unto themselves. They just spend billions of dollars without parliament. They don't follow the constitutional limits for them to come and seek condonation. They don't even give the Auditor General reports, documents on time, you know. So we might need to interact with their seniors so that this thing cannot recur.
Yeah, so maybe, Mrs. Undersara, could we get your answer, your explanation again on this huge deficit? Understandably, our RTGS has been going down in terms of its strength, but 106 billion still is a huge amount of money.
At that time it was 1 is to around 80.
Yeah.
RTGS $1 to 80. So we must look at it from that perspective. That if you look at the real value of money, it's not just RTGS, it's real money that we're talking about. Because if you divide 80 into 100 something billion RTGS, it gets to still unacceptable billions of US dollars equivalent. So we are not, it's not a small money. It's not a small money. But Mr. Chair, on the issue of surplus and deficit, this is a simple, let's use simple arithmetic. You are supposed to spend $10. You spend $8. So your surplus is $2. But then you come back and say, please, I'm seeking condonation. Ndakazosenzesa $20 more than the $10 that I was. This is the situation. The surplus is you spend less than what you were supposed to, or what you then collected. You collected more from the $10. Your surplus is $2, which means you wind up at $12. But also we are pay ndakazoona kuti pane dzimwe sum dzavo.
Put it in English so that other members.
Oh, yeah. Then you then come back and say, no. I thought I had a surplus. But no, I spent even more than what the surplus that I thought, the $2 that I thought putting the surplus now, surplus with, and then you want $20. This is the situation. I don't know if I can.
Yeah. So, Mrs. Undersara, just probably your last explanation on that issue of surplus and then these excesses.
Well, thank you, Chairman. The point I was trying to make was the distinction between the reference to the surplus and the request for condonation. And what I was saying, Chairman, is surplus, you are basically looking at how much you have collected versus how much you have spent. But when you come to the issue of condonation, you are looking at how much you have collected versus how much, it's how much you have spent versus what the approved budget is. That's the distinction I was trying to make.
So like I asked it to you, and I ask you again, in a layman's language, what are you saying? Because talk to a person who is who has been operating on the basis that we did the surplus in 2019, we used the other surplus to do A, B, C, Z, and then that person is then told, no. There was actually a deficit of 6 billion. These guys actually overspent by 6 billion. They then overspent again in 2020 by another 100 billion. And that's the explanation that I sought, that he probably as the accountant gurus would be in a position to simplify it to the ordinary person.
Chairman, I'm not sure how I can put it. Because what I've tried to, the distinction I've tried to convey is what is clear in my mind. I'm not sure how else I can present it, Honorable Chairman. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But can you also confirm that your so-called surplus could it not have been some cash surplus? And in answering that question, Mr. Ndasara, I just also need you to probably then advise us. Government agreed on the road to Ipsas to ensure that we take care of the accrual concept in accounting, because we understand that even the figures that we are talking of in terms of the over expenditure may actually be very little, because quite a number of ministries, departments, owe a lot of creditors out there. But because you haven't paid the actual check, it does not necessarily mean that there's no debt out there. So how far are we, or is there any progress that your ministry is taking in respect to the roadmap on the IPSAS?
Well, thank you, Chairman. First, just to confirm that when we are talking of a surplus, it's actually a cash surplus. Because we are on cash accounting, we are basically looking at what has come in versus what has gone out, as opposed to what is due to government versus the commitments that government has entered into. So yes, we certainly will be talking about a cash surplus. There would be commitments, Chairman, that may be outstanding, and the reason we made the decision to move to IPSAS is so that we are then able to show a more complete picture of the finances of government by going to the accrual basis of accounting. We've got a roadmap on its implementation. It's targeting 2025 for all entities that have been scoped in to be on accrual. There were some challenges, Chairman, in terms of implementation. First, of course, we had the pandemic, which came with movement restrictions and a lot of other challenges. But also along the way, we lost a number of key senior staff who were part of the project. But we are definitely back on it. We have engaged assistance from a number of support partners so that we try and still meet the original timeline.